Alright, new Stokea ride line that plays similar to Granfia for a Skyride character. So let's begin. So we start off with the starter with Estacion. And yes, you have to run this starter as it's linked to the ride line. In which we go to the grade 1 with K-Power, Legend of Randu Estacion, which has a skill of auto when rode upon by the grade 2 Legend of Ranho Estacion, cause Soul Blast the Estacion, and reveal one grade 3 Estacion from your ride deck, and then call Blast token from the back center column. And yes, I do mean Soul Blast to grade 0, and that's what I mean. It's kind of like the ride line, except with the costs. And one turn later. In which, before we continue with the ride line, we go to the Blast token itself, in which we got a new race called Blast, so keep that one in mind. So the first skill is that Count Rearguard. This card cannot be moved to other circles, and if you have Vanguard with Estacion, this unit gets all the following abilities. Count Rearguard. This unit is unaffected by your opponent's cards, cannot be chosen, retire, bound, lock, move, or anything. Although the funny thing is, for someone who attacks into this, that will still work. And at the moment, there's only one way to get this Blast token, and it's through the ride line. In which the second skill is Act Rearguard. Once per turn, cost put 2 or 3 other rearguards face up as plant gauges for this unit and draw a card, aka the Nosebleed token is back for Granfia, but for a different deck. And finally, Count Rearguard during your turn. If your Vanguard is at least grade 3, all your front row units get 5k power for every 3 gauges this unit has. But overall, it's not too bad. It's basically a booster that also acts as extra boosting for your whole front row. Just do keep in mind, despite having the protection ability, your opponent can still target this for an attack. And I mean by not normal means, because the only circle this is going to be is the back center circle behind the Vanguard. And now we continue with the ride line with the grade 2 with 10k power, Legend of Rojo Estacion, which has a skill of auto when placed by riding on top of the grade 1 Estacion. Search your deck for one Vital Blaze Blast, reveal it, and put it in your hand, of course, over your deck, aka search for your order card. Very simple, and combining that with the grade 1, it means that you basically set up for your grade 2 play. Because spoiler alert, the order card is a grade 2. In which, before we continue with the ride line once again, here is Vital Blaze Blast, which is grade 2 normal order, and you play if your Vanguard is Estacion. You Soul Blast 1 and put this face up as a plant gauge for your Blast token. Look at top 5 cards of your deck to choose up to 1 unit card with grade less than or equal to your Vanguard, and call one of them to rearguard, and of course shuffle your deck. But if you fail to call a card, call a plant token instead. So not only that you can do a early game call, but if you have nothing to call, you just basically boost up your Blast token. But it's also nice that you could just play this in your grade 2 turn. But not only that, this also has another ability where auto, when this card as plant gauge is being used and sent to the drop zone, choose one of your Blast units. That's the new race, remember, and it gets plus 5k power in the end turn. So basically it's a Blast gauge target, which is pretty nice, and it's also nice that it lets you search. So yeah, you must run 4 of these for the deck. In which we go to the grade 3 with 13 power, Legend of Shiku Estacion, which has the skill of Act Vanguard once per turn if you have a Blast token, and when the ability would be placing a plant token to rearguard, put it face up as plant gauge for your Blast token instead. And also, cost Count Blast 1, call up to 1 plant token to rearguard, and then look at top 3 cards of your deck to choose up to a card from among them, and put it to your hand, of course, of your deck. But if you have 6 plant gauges, look at top 5 instead. And yes, if you put the 6th gauge with this skill, that means that you can look at top 5, because you put the gauge first, and then you go to the top 5. So basically, in a way, it's a counter blast for a +2, although 1 gauge for a different resource, so technically it's still +1, but overall it's pretty good right there. But the second skill, which is going to be set up from the first skill, is Auto Vanguard. When this card attacks, cost discard 2 plant gauges and then search your deck or drop zone for 1 Blast unit and call it to rearguard. And of course, if you search your deck, shuffle it. So basically on attack, you get a 4th attacker from your deck or drop zone, which is actually pretty good. Overall, there's really not much to explain here other than just basically being a setup plus engine, and everything else is just depending on the support. But it is nice that it already gives you a 4th attack. And now to the support. Before we continue, here's what the new plant token looks like for Estacion, and a dragon plant is actually pretty cool, I must admit. And then to the remaining support, we start off with Rudicina of the Spring Sun, which is, remember, Blast unit, a grade 1 with 8k power, and the skill is Act Rearguard once per turn. If your Vanguard is Estacion, cost Energy Blast 3 and call a plant token, which is most likely to be absorbed by the Blast token. With the second skill of Auto Rearguard, when this card boosts, if you have 6 or more plant gauges, plus 2k into the end of the battle. Out of all the unit support for this deck, this is probably the weakest one, especially since you have other ways to call free plant tokens. But the upside is is that it is once per turn act, along with being a blast unit. And then we go to Ignacio of Summer Heat, which is great too when taking around the skills. Auto, when placed on rearguard by card ability, if you have at least 3 plant gauges, choose one of your opponent's rearguards, and into the end of the turn, it cannot intercept and cannot stand during the next stand phase, aka paralyze. Glad that they're bringing this back in Stokea, and it's overall pretty good for free. And the place by card ability part is not even hard because you got your grade 3 Estacion to do that. But the second skill is Count Rearguard Guardian. If your Vanguard is Estacion, while you have a plant token on rearguard, this unit gets a 5k power and 5k shield active on your opponent's turn as well. Nice that could be a big beater on its own, but it's more of a stall card than anything, but it is pretty decent to run nonetheless. And then we go to Genolit, the Anthem Dawn, which is great too with taking power on the skills. Auto drop. When you're gaining a plant gauge during your main phase, if your Vanguard is Estacion, you can counterblast 1 to call this to rearguard. This is pretty good, and of course it's easy to do, and it's also very nice that there's no same card name restriction on the board. With the second skill, Auto, when placed on rearguard, if your Vanguard is Estacion, call 1 plant token to rearguard. Yeah, you basically can get a call from this for 1 counterblast, and then you get a free plant token on top of it. But what's also nice is that since it says on place at any time, you can call a plant token in mid-battle if you play that type of battle ability, meaning that you can possibly get an extra attack if you get enough power. Although most of the time your blast token is going to absorb the plant token, but it is possible for you to do this. But it's a must run for the deck. And then to the last blast dragon for this set, and the strongest one probably, is Soloforio Frio of the Winter End, which is a grade 3 with 13 power and the skill is Auto, when placed on rearguard by card ability, if you have at least 5 plant gauges, until the end of your opponent's next turn, this card cannot be chosen by your opponent's card abilities and also crit +1. Just play full on offensive here. Pretty good. With the second skill, Auto rearguard hand. At the start of the guard step of the battle that your unit with Estacion is being attacked, cost, put this card into the drop zone and then choose one of your units being attacked and plus 10k power into the end of the battle. And this must be used before the guard step. This card is really reminding me of Oskadi. Offense with crit and defense with some extra shield value. But the nice part is that this one is not on board, but sometimes it will be on board. And also it's not going to be put into the Guardian, which is another thing because just in case of guard breaking sometimes, or guard restricts of grade 1s and higher. So yeah, pretty good for both offense and defense. Just too bad it doesn't get extra power on its own. And finally, here's the deck list. Yeah, some of the staples are 1 copy, but you don't really need them too much. And the rest of the deck is actually pretty good for a start deck. So I have to say, this is actually worth picking up. And I might give it a try myself because I kind of like the dragons. And then finally next week, we got more Lascaria support with Flamgram and along with an Overlord looking promo. And so that's it for this new ride line of Estacion. What do you guys think of it? Overall, for a start deck product with the whole list, it's actually pretty good. I like the concept of these elemental dragons already, and for a start deck, I actually like it with offensive play, a lot of plussing. Not much to say here. Although I do hope for good future support too, because I am a bit worried that it's because it's a Skyride manga card deck. I am worried about it not really being supported. But on that, that's it for this, and see you all next time.